Jess Lips. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. It's nice and rainy.
Yes, it's been raining for a little bit. Hope everyone's staying nice and dry.
I
Well,
know.
Mullum's pretty wet, right?
Yeah, South Golden's also underwater at the moment.
I wonder if my old house is still there.
Which address were you?
Shara Boulevard.
I think that's all under from what?
Oh my God, crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to check in with them this morning. So Jess Lips. Last time we spoke, I made a huge mistake. um, So I thought somehow, I don't know how, I reimagined that we'd done a podcast. And I forgot to ask you how you became spiritual. So, so, like you sent me a message and said, you told me about a podcast that you did last year, and
Yeah.
I read that and I thought, I thought that you meant that you'd done that on my podcast. And I was like, I don't really remember podcasting with you, but I always podcast with a lot of people and I forget because I just do too many, right? And I'm like, oh, we must have done it. And I've just lost the memory of it, right? And I was just like, all right, cool. Let's do another one, a little catch up. And then after we finished the podcast, I was like, I'm going to check back to see what Insta picture I posted for your first podcast. And then I was like, oh no, there wasn't a first podcast at all. And I didn't even like realize until after we'd done the podcast that there wasn't a first podcast. And I'm skipping over your story like I knew it because I didn't want to look like an idiot, like I didn't know what your
I
story
mean,
was.
we did speak in person quite a bit.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean because I've got the knowing of what's happening, but I didn't have it on the podcast. So yeah, sorry about that.
No, that's okay because I also picked up on something and I was like, I think it will naturally resolve.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, when I messaged you, it was regarding this other one I did a year ago, and I just felt inspired to reach out about it. Because like so much has happened since that one.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, must words just get sometimes lost in translation.
yeah. I read it the wrong way and completely like yeah. I'll just you know I didn't even check. I've been a little bit busy with Baba was on the way, so I was like, oh my god, I didn't even check. And then I was like, afterwards, I was like, oh, we'll have to do it again.
Take two.
Yeah. So, Jess Lips, how did you become spiritual?
Good. Yeah, I guess we're taking it back to back to the base.
Yeah.
Um, well, spirituality for me began. Well, I would always say there was a little bit in me from when I was really young. I just didn't know. I never, when I was like 14, 15, I never practiced meditation or I didn't do anything that was, let's say, spiritual. But I remember like always on my way to school, looking out the window, just like wanting, like there was more.
Mhm.
I had this like thirst in me. I was like, there's something else that that I'm missing, and I'm not sure what that is. And I'm like, all I know is that I always had thoughts when I was really young, like 14 and 15, that something's not as it seems, that there's so much more to life, or there's so much more to what I'm seeing. I remember always, always having that awareness and always being, I've always been very like hypersensitive and very almost aware of everyone else's thoughts. And there was always this like, I'd say empath in me. But then when I was 18, um, I was on a gap year in Europe with, I was in, gap year in Israel for 6 months. And then I was meant to go to Europe for another 6 months with friends. But instead of going to Europe, I actually cancelled that, went for a month and booked flights to India by myself.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, and I was inspired at the time because I was around people who were just like, they were like, just do what you want. And I was like, even, go to India by myself. And they're like, yeah, if that's what you want, do it. Whereas if I was at home and probably sheltered, I wouldn't be allowed out, but because I was already in Israel, I could just
Mhm.
book the flights. It was a lot more easier. So I actually booked to stay at to go to Oroville in Pondicherry.
Mhm.
Yeah, when I was 18, and was meant to stay at the farm for 3 months and then evaluate and either come home or, it was left open.
Mhm.
And at the time, I
Did you
was
go
on,
to Pondicherry?
yes, I did.
How good is that little bread and chocolate
Oh my
cafe?
God, that wasn't there when I was 18.
Oh no.
Bread and chocolate only came in 2000 and I think 18, and I was there
Right.
2015.
Right. Right. Well, interesting story. When I
Yeah,
was in India, no, I think it was there. Were you in Pondicherry in 2017? Or
16 and 17.
16?
But
Well, I was there in India for the 1st of March, which it is today, in 2017, and I went to that cafe, so it must have just opened.
okay, so maybe it just did.
Yeah, because that was my birthday, and today's my birthday.
Happy
Woo!
birthday!
Yeah,
Oh,
thank you.
hey.
So it's just interesting that you bring that up, and I was like, oh, I was there this time in like 4 years ago, or whatever it was, 5 years ago. I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah,
Well, I've lost track of
five,
time. Happy birthday, though.
5 years. That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh,
and it's beautiful. Like what a like the delicacies there are delicious.
and everything's so precise because everything's made with so much love and intention. And um,
Hmm.
I feel like I think the founders of Bread and Chocolate are French from I remember looking them up because I was like very
Yeah.
inspired.
Hmm. Delicious. Loved it.
Good.
Yeah.
Even Oroville Bakery.
So you did live there for a few months?
So I went there for 1 month, and then after that, so during that month,
Yeah.
um I actually got there I was on a whole bunch of like antidepressants and stuff like that.
Hmm. But
And
hang on, before you go there, sorry
yeah.
to interrupt. Um, you go? How many times did you go into the big Golden Globe?
Ooh, I think only when I first got there, like 2 or 3 times.
2 or 3 times. Yeah. That,
Did you
yeah.
go?
I
Yeah.
went in there once. Yeah. Just the one time. Go to book and all that kind of stuff. And
Yes, and you meditate
yeah,
inside.
yeah, yeah. Really, really interesting place. That
It's a powerful,
I
powerful.
want one. I want a big golden ball to meditate in.
We should have one in Australia.
Absolutely, we've got to build one.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because like Oroville was built by everyone.
Yeah.
I love
As I found a little bit interesting was the fact that there was really miserable, grumpy people that were like guarding the inside of it. Shh. They're very particular and strict about the rules about being quiet and you know how you walk and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, you guys are supposed to be relaxed. This should be chilled out from meditating in here.
I noticed that.
Yeah.
Um, I also feel I like overanalyzed the whole
Yeah.
like Oroville at one point, but I
Yes.
noticed like I think Oroville's like a really good introduction, especially when you don't know what meditation is.
Hmm.
And I feel like I don't know what it's like right now, but I know that at the time it still felt really new, and it was for people who had never really experienced like meditation. And it's
Hmm.
like, yeah, if like for me it was an introduction. I think for a lot of people it is.
Yeah.
But
And
then
it's
as
like a very novel way of trying it, or very novel way of getting into it because you're in a giant golden
yeah,
spaceship. Yeah.
it's much more commercial. But I think at the time, like when you don't know, when you're new to it, it's like really amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It is, but yeah.
Yeah. So you were on antidepressants when you went to Oroville?
Yeah, Oroville. And then I was on this farm, and they went literally a week or like 4 days into it. They were like, why don't you give it a try going off it? And we'll cook for you and like look after you for a month. And this was a farm that like it wasn't a retreat. It's called Buddha Garden, and
Hmm.
it's still open. It was the most non-commercial farm, and they were just doing that out of pure generosity. And they were like, why don't you give it a try? We'll teach you yoga, we'll teach you meditation, and see how you feel and how your body feels. And I think we just had a really good connection. And I said, like, I was like, of course, that's I think what maybe I've never tried any of that, but I've always wanted to. And about, a few weeks into it, I was completely off antidepressants and everything. And I was like in a whole new rhythm. And instead of staying there for 3 months, I ended up actually meeting, I met this this guy that's a good friend, and he wanted to take a motorbike from New Delhi to Ladakh. And I was like, I'm gonna come with. and like I was just like, I was very inspired. And I think it was just from like I felt really free, and I felt like invincible, and I was young, and I was like, at the time I was just like so excited to explore. And so I didn't tell family or anyone I was going, but I ended up canceling the accommodation at the farm, but leaving my stuff there. I donated half of my stuff and all my antidepressants to the Oroville doctor, and like the clothing, the clothing shops, op shops, secondhand shops. And I just like packed a little backpack, and we flew to New Delhi, and then the intention was to motorbike to Ladakh. But yeah, so I think it was, and then like that whole journey, it was like I prolonged this India trip from like 3 months to like 6 months. And it was, there's so many stories within those 6 months. Like I met the Dalai Lama, and like asked him a question, and
What?
yeah, there was
What did you where did you meet the Dalai Lama, and what did you ask him?
so when I ended up hopping off at Manali instead of Ladakh, and then I spent time there, and then I went to Rishikesh, and then I was like learning yoga in all the ashrams there, and then I went to Dharamsala because the Dalai Lama was doing I'm
sure there's good stories in Rishikesh too.
Oh, amazing! It's everything, like, because I was staying at this ashram. Forgot the name, but it's not one of the commercial ones, and it was like $1.50 or $2 a night, including yoga and food, and it was that in itself. I was like, is this real? Like, I was like, where am I?
Yeah.
And then and then, but I guess like the main turning point to answer the question for spirituality was in, I'd say, Dharamsala, because I was there for a few weeks, and one of those weeks was to attend the Dalai Lama talks. And I actually at the time don't remember exactly what the main, because he usually talks about a specific like topic, but at the time I just remember I think it was about like greed and happiness, and basic concepts. But on day 2 or 3, I was so curious to ask him. I wanted to ask him about like statistics and murder, and it was about my main question. It was like a 2-page write-up.
Yeah.
Was whether like I said, like, I've grown up with the understanding that murder and all of that just happens on a statistical basis. Like, it's kind of like it's out of luck or being unlucky. But I was like, I'm curious, is there a part of our subconscious that creates things to happen around us? Or do they just happen because they happen? Like, is there something that we can control or change within ourselves that then changes the events that occur around us? Or is it just, because at the time I wanted to do like a hike by myself from like, I was inspired to do from like from like where was it, Gujarat to Gujarat to Kerala. I wanted to walk by myself, and I was,
is it like where, like in the bush, in the forest?
I just along the coast, but it would roads, and there'd be like, it'd be very dangerous.
Yeah, surely there's tigers and stuff there, right?
I think snakes, everything.
Right.
But I was curious whether like a trip like that, like could I could I, could something not happen to me, or if I, thought positive. It was this curiosity with like nature and danger.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I ran up to the queue, like to the top of the queue with the Dalai Lama, and there was like hundreds of people queuing to ask him a question, like to like give a note. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I looked him in the eye. I'm like, please, like this question. And he could only answer 2 questions out of like hundreds, and he answered mine.
Wow.
And I was like, I just remember I was like, what? Like it was this like immediate thought or feeling of how, like, if you really will something, it comes true. And I was reading The Alchemist, and I was just reading all these books about spirituality and about like the universe is always in your favor. And
Mm-hmm.
next minute I'm watching it unfold in real life.
Yeah.
And he
In
answered my
India,
question.
India
Yeah.
is such a powerful place for that, right?
Yes.
India, if you just go to India with your intentions and you let go, and then you just go for the journey, and it'll show you all the things
Yeah,
really powerfully.
and sometimes those journeys actually aren't good. Like I went back a few times and they didn't want to show me good things.
Yeah, sometimes they're not great, but So I've got questions about this Dalai Lama situation.
Yes.
That question that you're asking is like super deep and super um, like it's a huge like question. Like, how much can we impact the not just our own life, but how much can that impact everything in the world? Right? Is that what this is kind of saying? Like, can I fix myself to the point where everything's fixed? Is that like,
Yeah, because like
or like, or can I like do the work so well that it has an effect on everything?
ultimately it's like
Yeah.
like I think personally speaking, and then on a collective basis, like this ripples out. But I was brought up in so much fear that like, you might be walking in a street at night and just, get murdered or raped, or there
Mm-hmm.
was so much, I'd say, fear around that, like, even in Australia, and even like especially then, like in in India, Europe, Israel, like if you're in a cab too late with some, like by yourself, like something might happen. And I just remember being like I was alone, obviously overseas, but I remember
Mm-hmm.
being so scared. Like I've been told all these stories,
Yes.
but then nothing bad was happening to me personally. It was
Mm-hmm.
only good things. And I was just curious, like, yeah, like I was curious, like also like to take that power back. Is there something in my power that can be changed, so that those events don't actually have to happen?
Mm-hmm.
um I was actually, it was more so survival, because at the time, like, you're brought up, or I was instilled with so much fear. And I was like, does this have to be here? Is there a way out?
Mm-hmm.
It was just, yeah, it was very deep, but it was also like to answer, it was also to answer, the question of, if I did something really dangerous, do I have to fear something bad will happen to me?
Mm-hmm.
But I just, yeah, he answered in abstract words,
Mm-hmm.
but it was amazing.
Do you remember what he said, or is it too much?
Um, a lot of it's blurry, but I remember a few things that they glued to me. But
Mm-hmm.
um, and like for a while I was like, did this happen? But then I have a few friends that were there, and they were like, yeah, this did happen. I was like a bit like, I didn't document it that much at the time. I wasn't like taking so many photos on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, this event just happened, and it was very abstract in my mind. But I remember the one thing he did say was, like, we all see the color blue. And he was trying to say everyone is connected, everyone is one, and how there is a link and this is very controversial, but he said there is a link between the person, the victim, and the perpetrator.
Mm-hmm.
There is a oneness even in that, even though you can't see that. And he was trying to say how everything is just archetypes of our subconscious mind playing out in this world. And so if we understand, from what I took from what he said, and he said these in other words, but if we understand the archetypes that play out within ourselves, we understand why all these bad things happen externally. And so ultimately he said, yes, it is in our control, but like we have to also, he didn't say exactly yes, but his answer answered almost like yes, but we've just got to understand what's playing out within us that's then being externalized to create that.
Cool.
But yeah, that was a very big, I'd say,
Powerful spiritual shift.
yeah. I was like, everything I was brought up believing was kind of not what it seemed.
Yeah.
Um
And I guess that's something I experienced in India as well. Is like I had the same kind of fears around, like you know going to foreign countries, and you're going to get pickpocketed and bad things are going to happen. But when you are following that inner guidance and that listening to that voice, when you move in that direction, everything seems to work perfectly, and it's like you're on a magical excursion, and as opposed to this fearful thing where it's like, what if this person comes and they're bad and they try to hurt you, but like they're actually, people come and they try to feed you, and you're thinking on your journey, I'd like a chai, and then someone comes around the corner and gives you a chai, and you're like, how did this happen? Like, whatever, like
exactly.
yeah. And so like, even though bad things do happen and can happen, it's more that if you're in that adventure space, it's like you're protected, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like I think it's a mindset as well, because like there's one sense of being like innocent and naive with like, magical journey, but then there's also, I think, if you have that higher awareness, there's also a sense of protection.
I think so. I
um
feel that.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the journey then continued. It was like a really big 6 months, I'd say. Like I sat Vipassana for the first time like 2 weeks later. And like, yeah, 10-day silence, and I
That
was,
was it. That wasn't in India.
no, that was in
That
India.
was okay. Okay. Yeah. Right.
That was in Tiruvannamalai.
Oh, yes, yes. Is that where Sri Ramana Maharishi
Yes,
was?
yes.
Yes, yes,
Next, it was like the center was next to Arunachala,
yes.
which is like the main, I'd say, yeah, his mountain.
Mm-hmm.
um and yeah, that was powerful because firstly you're absorbing like all the energies from Ramana Maharishi.
Mm-hmm.
um and like secondly you're just with yourself.
Yeah.
um but yeah, it's like at the time I didn't know what was happening.
Uh-huh.
I was like, it was just awakenings of um of like who I am. This is why we're here. I'm not here to do this. And it's confronting. um I think when you have like a certain idea of how things should be and you're so brought up with that, it's like then you self-realize something else.
Yeah.
And the worst part was I wanted to leave the Vipassana because I was like, I don't want to know this much. It's nice when I don't know. Like I was like, now I can't ever go back. Like I can't, I know too much.
Yes.
And it's like, if I'm in so much pain right now in this center, like until I fix this pain, this is what I was thinking, until I guess like overcome all this pain that I feel here, I can't actually be happy. Like it was this feeling of like how much work I have to do within myself to be happy, and how much suffering I was suffering subconsciously. Yeah, it was really quite deep and profound and scary.
Yeah, because when you start digging into that stuff, you start to realize you're like, oh well, how deep is it? Like
Yeah.
it almost feels like it's infinitely deep, right?
Yeah.
So you're like, yeah, or you work through some stuff and then you get to like a clearing and you're like, I've done it, I've resolved all the things, and then another wave comes and you're like, no, I thought I dealt with this before.
Yeah, and it's like,
Yeah.
especially when you just start, you realize how much you've accumulated. At that point, I'd accumulated 18 years worth of conditioning,
Yes.
and I just started to like tap at like as like on a rock. Like I just started to like knock it off, and I was like, if I took 18 years to accumulate this is going to take me like another 10 years or 20 years to de-accumulate. And I only realized later, like they say, people, there's like all these sayings out how like the journey is to uncondition what you've, we spend so much time accumulating knowledge.
Yeah.
But at the time I had no awareness of that. It was just like a feeling like I've gathered all this dust, I need to get rid of it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So then where did you go from Vipassana?
So after Vipassana, I actually decided to stay in Tiruvannamalai for, I'd say, I think it was like, I just decided to stay there for maybe another month or so. So I rented out a room, like a little, where did I end up? Oh, it was another little ashram, very non-commercial, next to Arunachala. And, I actually met a palmistry teacher. His name's Bharat Rocklin. I don't know.
What is it? What does he teach?
Like palmistry at the
Oh,
time.
yes.
I was really curious because I was reading a book about I was reading a book by Bharat in Tiruvannamalai, and then next minute he appeared in that cafe.
What? Did you not know he was there before you started reading the book?
No, I was just so drawn to this book, and I went to the front. It was magic after magic.
Yeah, right.
And I went to the front and I was just like, hey, I've been reading this book. Do you know any palmistry teachers in Tiruvannamalai? And then out of nowhere, like, he's like, oh, that's my book.
What?
And then I was like, can I learn palmistry with you?
Wow, that's amazing.
It was crazy. And so I ended up learning with him like once a week for the next month. And like he's actually passed away now. He was I think 75 or 80, maybe 80, and he would have been maybe 86 now. But it's pretty sad. But he's a New Yorker Jew living in Tiruvannamalai.
Right.
And his book's all over the web. I think it's just called Palmistry by Bharat Rocklin. But I ended up just absorbing like that information as well as just meditating, and I was writing a lot. But it was just this time of like I was learning all these like abstract arts that I would have never been taught growing up. But I would walk to him every day, and it was like I think it was a couple K walk because he was out of the town a bit. And I'd like meet all these babas along the way and have chai with the babas. And there was one guy that got bitten by a monkey and he was healing himself through meditation. It was
Wow.
like one of like the actual, it worked.
Yeah.
I was like, there was all these magical things happening that I can't explain. It was just this,
It's India, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like it's not like a guided tour, or like you're not going to just the Taj Mahal or just doing the touristy spots. Like if you're just in there and you're just following your inner guidance and going for a journey, really does support you.
Yeah, I mean, I actually did try to come back a few years later to like study yoga and do all this stuff, but it never was quite the same because I think my intention was different.
Mm-hmm.
And I observed how lucky I was that time because it came from this state of innocence, that everything started happening.
Yeah,
But
because
um
when you have like the plan of like, all right, I'm going to go and do the yoga training, and then
yeah,
I'm going to get it. I'm going to get like this is going to happen and that's going to happen, and then I'm going to, and then none of it happens.
yeah, like then you're like, oh, I'm gonna walk to the Ganges now and like maybe someone will appear, but because you're thinking that,
Yeah, yeah,
like um
not innocent anymore.
yeah, it's kind of.
Mm.
But yeah, after that I went to Kerala to Hugging Amma's ashram.
Yes,
Do you know Hugging?
I do know. I don't know Hagiyama, but I know of Hagiyama.
Yeah, so I got hugs from her for a few days.
Yeah, right.
um
For a few days.
well, yeah, she was in the ashram at the time, which is quite rare usually.
Mm.
And so for about, I think 3 or 4 days, it was like a massive queue. And if you wanted to line up, you could get hugs. So for 2 of the days, I got 2 hugs.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest I just observed.
Did she get like Did she get no hugs in during COVID?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
that would
sure
have been
her like inner circle would still be hugging her.
right, right. It's a bit of a tough time for hugs, the old COVID.
Yeah,
Um, so so how many hugs does she give a day?
thousands. Like
Thousands.
probably like there must be at least, I mean, this is minimum, at least 1,000 people queuing up, but it could be more.
Was it a good hug? Was it worth the wait?
It was worth the wait.
Really?
I mean, it like yeah, at the time it was like when you're in that state of
Mm-hmm.
like magic and whatever it is, like everything had meaning.
Yes, of course.
But yeah, no, it was like she whispered mantras while she's hugging you,
Ah, I
and I
see.
didn't know what she said, but it was like it was, I think, what I needed to hear, or she said
Mm-hmm.
different things for everyone, but
Right, right.
um it's, yeah, it's quite, I mean, it's quite profound. She, like, there were a lot of people crying.
Mm-hmm.
um and I think a lot of people, like, she was hugging people in a way that they're not usually hugged.
Yeah.
It's like so simple, it's a hug, but
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people don't experience, it's so simple, but just a
But
hug.
to be hugged with unconditional love.
Yes, and presence.
Mm-hmm.
um that was it was nice to watch, and that was just like, it was just, everyone from all over the world was there.
Mm-hmm.
um some spiritual, some not even knowing what spirituality is.
Yeah.
So it was quite, yeah, it was quite like profound to even just watch that environment
Mm-hmm.
and learn to be in it. um yeah, there was a lot of people crying. That's what I remember.
Right. Did you stay at her ashram or somewhere else?
I stayed there for about a week.
Does she have practices, or is it just like, like, do you, instead of doing sadhana, do you just hug people and on a yoga mat or something?
Well, so firstly, it's funny, it's like a little kibbutz community that of like, there are like the main people that live there
Yes.
full time. um and there's actually, it was funny because I got to learn all the drama of what's going on in the actual ashram. But the main people's, oh, there's, I don't know if you can hear.
You can hear some sirens. Yeah. Isn't it funny how ashrams always have drama?
It's so, and even Oroville, I got to learn later
Right.
on the political drama.
I know. That's what I meant by people that are a little bit uptight in
Yeah,
Oroville. It's like you're supposed to be like a community and like all happy hippies, but everyone's like really, like, it's like a power struggle.
yeah,
Everyone's like trying to police and trying to like tell everyone how to live, and it's like, oh, it's a little bit strange. But I blame that because the masters left their body, and that state of consciousness isn't upholding the environment anymore.
yes, like since the mother and I think
Yeah.
Aurobindo, yeah.
Aurobindo, yeah.
um it's true because it's
Yeah.
it's now more memorial site
Mm-hmm.
at the moment.
Yeah. And like I feel like once the masters and they're holding that space of their giant consciousness and they kind of go, and then like it's kind of like a power struggle to take over, you know. Well,
Yeah.
not take over, but people just like try to hold their position, and it becomes about something a little bit different.
Yeah, because I guess like everyone's at different states of consciousness, and no one's
Yeah.
really at that like it was such a pure, it seemed like such a pure state of being, and
Mm-hmm.
they had no other they had no other intention other than just, you know, unconditional love and just to gift people a space.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I
Yeah.
think regular people just don't know how to, they don't know how to cope without conflict or something.
Exactly. Yeah. And rules.
Yeah.
Lots of rules.
But I noticed that in Amma's ashram as well.
Yeah.
If there was like, I'd be waiting in queue, I think for a piece of bread, and then there would be the main people that actually live there, and they were like gossiping about someone who didn't show up to practice, or just like
Mm-hmm.
it's drama. But
What is the practice at what is the practice at Amaz Ashram?
I so what I actually didn't submerge into the practice because I don't think there was a main. I don't think, from what I remember, there wasn't a main practice, but there was just different, like you could go to yoga at like 7 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think there was like a meditation hall, but it was a bit scattered from memory. It wasn't like, there wasn't a set way from what I recall.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like for example, when I was in Tiruvannamalai, I was submerging into Ramana Maharishi's practice, um, and like it's more just like a concept, like who you just ask yourself, who am I? Who's the I that's speaking?
Mm-hmm.
And you're constantly like questioning the I that is telling you all this stuff. Like,
It's like more of a contemplation practice.
yes.
Yeah, that's what it feels like when I smoke weed. It's like there's a voice comes and it's like, hey, this is an idea. And another voice comes and goes, that's a crap idea. Who's that? Another voice comes and goes, both of you are wrong. And I go, ah. It's like I can't deal, so I
Yeah.
can't smoke weed. But anyway, that's my contemplation when I get high. So yeah, but yeah, I just much prefer to transcend rather than to think about it all. You know.
Yeah, I think, I mean, thoughts, like sometimes thoughts now just come and you just got to keep moving through them.
Yeah, yeah. Like obviously, the contemplation is a very powerful practice, and not saying that it isn't, but yeah.
Yeah, but I think at the time, yeah, but so from what I remember, Tiruvannamalai had that practice, had something, whereas in the ashram, it didn't seem like there was a main thing.
That practice, yeah.
Maybe I didn't submerge enough, but like it didn't. Usually, I was like drawn to the spaces of like, you know, of the practices, or but I wasn't. I didn't seem to be pulled that way, but I do remember I got a Vedic astrology reading for the first time in
Mm,
in the ashram.
right. Do you
Um,
remember who did it?
no, I don't. I'm sure she's online somewhere.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Um, but that it was. I feel like every place like led me to something specific that then led me to something else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then after that, I went to Goa for like 2 days and then flew home back to Australia. um, I didn't know what to do with any of that. Like I've said this out loud to like friends, never to like, you know, it puts it in perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was like, what do you do with all of that?
Yeah. And so how did you go to integrating all of that?
Um, I
Did you like come home and then decide to throw all your clothes away and like, you
Yes,
know, really lighten the load and be like, it's all material stuff and just kind of get free?
I got rid of thousands of dollars worth of clothes.
Right.
Like I threw away 30 pairs of shoes,
Yep.
more maybe. Yeah, like
Mhm.
I actually I'll send you photos after, but I have like I ended up I sold a bit of it, but I ended up just gifting it away.
Mhm.
Um firstly actually my first thing was clothes.
Mhm.
I got rid of
Clo-
everything.
Clothes carry a lot of karma.
They do.
Yeah, and so sometimes we just feel compelled to remove it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because each item, I think, or from what I felt, each item like has been pulled through, like a state of consciousness and an
It,
experience.
yes.
And when you wear it, it's like replicates that energy.
Mhm.
Um,
And if you're holding on to a lot of old clothes that have carried a lot of old energy, you feel like that it's like weighing you down almost.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's so
Interesting.
that's first step was actually um interesting. Yeah, get rid of everything I ever owned. Like a lot of people around me are like, what are you doing? Like, this is really nice clothes. I'm like, I just need to let everything go right now. It's not.
Yeah.
Um, and then what else did I do? Um, Definitely was actually that was step one.
Mhm.
I eventually then moved to. I deferred my degree. I decided not to study. I was like, I just like right now. I just experienced something quite big. I
Mhm.
can't really, you know, study right now. I moved to Melbourne and just started honestly working to earn so much money to go back to India.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, that was like one of my first steps was to um at the time it wasn't to like ground the energy at home, it was to keep moving.
Mhm.
I felt like I needed to just keep moving and traveling and exploring because I was so shocked with just how much information I'd learned in 6 months. I
Mhm.
was like, what else is there? So yeah, I guess like I think that really started the started the journey for me. Well, I like in 2017, I was like working so much and then just earned all this money and went back to India in the end of 2017.
Mhm.
And then I just kept going back to India. I was like studying small things on the side and I was, you know, like doing things on the side, but predominantly I was just like, I have to be going back.
Mhm.
And I just kept going back from 2017, 2018, 2019, and then COVID. Um, and then COVID was its own journey. But I'd say
Mhm.
the main turning point was 2016, which was just like it just shook up everything.
Mhm.
Um, I kept going back to Vipassana as well, like a few times a year. Or back when I was in India, I'd stay at a center for 3 months.
Mhm.
I was just like, I think I was just like, what did I just, maybe it was a bit of an attachment, but it was also, I was like, what did I learn? Like, what was that?
Mhm.
Um, I now feel a lot more like I've overcome that chapter of searching, but for a very long time, I was just like, I would stay in Rishikesh for months and just go to the Ganges every day, um, and write and just like pray and just meditate
Mhm.
and um,
That's the life, though, really, isn't it?
yeah.
Like, how good is that? Just going down to the Ganges, hanging out in Rishikesh, you know, like writing, journaling. Like, that is the dream right there.
But it was amazing because it's like nothing else mattered.
Mhm.
Um, like there were different stages where I was under this concept that everything was just a test, which it is. But at the time I was like, so for example, I accidentally dropped my phone in the Ganges, didn't have a phone for a couple of weeks, and I was like, sweet, like
Yeah.
I went to that extent of like pushing the limit of
Mhm.
of what I believe is like mine. Um And I feel like I really took everything. I'm a bit of an extremist that way. I feel like I took everything to like the furthest point.
Yeah, yeah.
That now I'm a lot more like materialism, and I'm okay with like a little bit of it. but
Yeah.
but at the time, I wanted to know what it was like to really have nothing ultimately.
Yeah, we want to strip back what is not us to find out what really is us, right?
Yeah, because it's like, yeah, without all of that, who are we?
100%.
Yeah.
Yes. And then?
And then um so many things, like there was different moments in, because like especially when I was at Vipassana, I went back and I stayed in the main center in Gujarat in Bhuj in 2019. And I remember, so I stayed there for 3 months, and I sat like two courses. And I was with one of the main teachers. His name's Dr. Savla. And I think, I'm pretty sure Goenkaji, who started Vipassana, gave his power, or like gave his authority to Dr. Savla, from what I understand. And Dr. Savla was at the center the whole time I was there. And that was powerful because, like they say, once you dissolve everything, it feels like there's nothing left in the spine, and there's nothing left, in anything. And I remember, like, I think for me it was this search to get there. But I got to a stage where, there was like nothing in my body. It was all dissolved. And I went to Dr. Savla, and I was like, I don't know what's going on, but all I know is like when I'm meditating, I'm enjoying it, because for like 5 or 6 days I just meditated without eating. And I was like in a trance, and he asked me what's wrong, or like, are you okay? And I said, there's nothing there. And then, it became very deep. Like he was like to me, like there was like a little bit of a rock or something at the back of my spine. And he told me to focus on that, and then that dissolved. And then he was just like, you're gonna live a really happy life. It was just weird, like that. But that after that, I just got back into life and reality. And I feel like I don't know what happened in that space, but
Right.
I just feel like since then it's like I kind of got what I was searching for in 2016. And since then I feel a lot more, I guess, like everything's okay, even though things happen around me. And like it's almost time for me to integrate back to the West. That's why I said, like, I'm studying now and all this stuff. I feel like it's now time to integrate. But I definitely went through a lot of clearing and like silence for so many years. Yeah.
And what happened? You, in the message that you originally sent, you said you were working with like creativity and death.
Yeah.
How is that like a thing? Like what does that mean?
Wait, creativity and death.
Yeah.
Trying to remember. Like in the message.
The original message that you said, like when you podcasted from last year.
Oh yeah.
You spoke about creativity and death.
Well, I mean, after that, that's when, like, so after that time in the ashram or in Vipassana, I came home, and that's when, like, I guess, like, I lost my brother. Like he left us, I guess you can say. in his I mean, debatably his choice, but
did he struggle with depression as well?
he had severe depression.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he committed suicide in 2019. So only a couple months after that.
After you got home.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it was really weird because, I mean, I went through a whole stage of being like, did I just do all of that for him? You know, like, because he mentioned my travels in like a note that he left, and how like it showed him what, you know, for you know, he said thank you for trying to find your own freedom. It's like showed him from afar. But it's weird because I guess strange because I've had to integrate, I'd say, the concept of death in what I experienced over the past few years. And it was kind of like, you know, I feel like all of that which I was doing over the past few years was just like practice to like deal with, you know, something in real life.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's been a journey of like going through that, and then I came to a conclusion, and then like, you know, a death happened, and then I'm like, you know, yeah, I guess I start to see death more abstractly than just what it used to be.
Mm-hmm. And life as well, right?
Yeah, it's become like, I think, yeah, like um yeah, it's like everything's been unraveling since a little bit.
Mm.
Yeah, so I feel like, yeah, still processing all of that, but in saying that, I feel like if I hadn't experienced the past few years, I wouldn't know how to handle any of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Love
Yeah.
that.
Um yeah, I remember what I was thinking when I sent that to you, but I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
in this present moment, I'm like, um I don't know what, I can't link the words yet, but
Right.
but yeah, it's all, yeah, so been interesting since then.
Mm-hmm.
um I guess just a journey of, yeah, so much has happened since, especially,
Mm-hmm.
but that journey was definitely it was like you know, pre to enter that.
Mm-hmm.
um yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
You know, thank you for asking.
And then where are we now?
Maybe that's where we are now.
Yes.
Where we are
That.
now, I think life's become just creative,
Mm-hmm.
and I take life a lot less seriously as I used to.
Mm-hmm.
um I'd say I'd say everything feels a lot lighter, and like it's easier to be, it's it's weirdly easy, it's easier to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
um it's like, yeah, I feel like life is just like light, and I just choose to embrace it, and I just want to create all the time.
Mm-hmm.
um and like there are so many things that I, you know, used to think I need to do, and it's just a lot more simpler than that. So I
Mm-hmm.
think right now we're just at, you know, it's a state of simplicity
That's
almost.
that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of a contrast, right? Because in the world, there's like that we had the last 2 years of COVID, and then now we've got like um, war overseas
Yeah.
and flooding in this country, and it's like it's chaos, but there's still simplicity there if you can tap into it, right?
Well, I mean, there's like, this is quite deep what I'm about to share, but
Yeah.
it's set the tone, at least for me. Like my brother, like, I guess, left us, like, or said, yeah, it was on the brinks of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
It was like when there was fires, storms, flooding, and like he's always been very intuitive, and it just felt like his death, at least for me, um it carved the way of just like the end and the beginning. For me,
Mm-hmm.
like it was a symbol almost of like life's never going to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so after that, I didn't expect anything to be normal.
Right.
I was like, there's going to be so much happening around the world. It was this gut feeling of like, there will be war.
Mm-hmm.
There will be like, this isn't okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I feel like I've been very aware since 2019. I'm like, things are going to be crazy. And like, it was just knowing that things aren't going to be okay.
Normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, not
And
normal.
so it's like you've got to embrace every moment, but also like we have to adapt as well.
Yeah.
um it was a very strong, like,
Like line in the sand.
yeah, like shit's changing.
Yeah.
But and it's weird, I've noticed that ever since it's like getting worse and worse, but also hopefully it has to get worse to get better.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, yeah, it's going to be quite big.
Yeah. It has been already, but yeah, it's getting more intense.
Yeah, it's like climaxing. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm glad we had this second chat, Jess Lips, and actually sorted out your journey because it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's I appreciate that there's a platform to share it.
And we finally sorted out the fact that I didn't ask you how you got spiritual the first time. Is there anything else that you wanted to share before we wrap it up?
Mm,
'Cause I'm sure
not,
we could talk for hours, but I have to go and do some stuff. So
I just realized it's 8. Um,
yeah,
yeah. No, I think that's all. That's definitely that's it.
cool. Well, thank you very much for coming on again.
Yeah, thank you.
And
It's been nice and it's been real.
yeah, of
It's been
course.
really good.
Until next time.
Yeah, next when the journey thickens. But
Yes,
yeah,
well, we're setting the intention for going to India next year. You should come.
okay, cool. Done.
Yeah, lock it in.
Done. That's happening. Thank you
Awesome.
so
We
much.
should we'll put a gang together and we'll just go with like 50 people, I think.
Yeah, there's already a few people I spoke about since, and they all said yes. So
Perfect. You're into going to Amaz Ashram and doing PK?
what's that?
Maybe not Amaz Ashram.
There's
Anyway,
another one in Tiru. Another Ummers in Tiru.
you know Amaz from where is it? You know Amma, Shri Shakti Amma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's near Tiru Vannamalai.
Oh, right.
That
Yeah,
one.
that's the one we're going to.
But we can go back to Rishikesh and
100%.
okay, done.
I like to live in Maharishi's ashram, I
Yeah.
go there every day and, hide up in the little egg houses and write stuff and play music. So yeah,
Yes.
it's fun.
Thank you so much for your time
Thank
and
you.
words
Speak
and
to you
messages.
soon.
Yeah. Chat
Bye.
soon.
Bye.
Bye.